Any takeaways, any wins for the week?
I might go under contract on a house that's been on the market 100 days.
Okay. Is this the one that we were talking about a day or two ago?
Yes.
Last week?
I was successful in getting him to reduce his price because he was overpriced. So and then I did another open house, and I have to tell you the most bizarre story though. So I almost had a multiple offer deal, but the most random thing happened is the agent who was going to be submitting the second offer called and said the gal's husband was shot just the night prior. Now, I'm not kidding. In Roy, it happened. That happened on Saturday night. And so it was a gal and her boyfriend were buying a house together. And yeah, he was attempting to approach, I guess, a couple guys who were that were burglarizing cars in the neighborhood.
Oh.
And he got shot, and they took him to the hospital where he died.
Oh my, he shot and got killed.
Yes. It was so crazy. Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
It was an interesting weekend.
Wow. And this was the buyer of the agent that was going to make an offer?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Sorry, not to start it on a bad tone. It was
crazy.
Just so random. I couldn't believe it.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. Well, these are the reminders of how careful we need to be in today's world. I'm not sure if you guys remember, I guess it's now been probably about 5 years. The agent, there was a realtor that was shot and killed and shot in the back when he was trying to evict a tenant of his. He was a dear friend of mine, and he was an agent for our company for a number of years, and so it was the same thing when he should have probably gone through the police and rather than taking matters into his own hands, and you never know what can happen. I mean, it's just a different world out there. So it puts things in perspective. And wow, crazy story. Okay, well, with that,
sorry.
No, I asked for some wins and some things. So you might go under contract, which is fantastic, and that's part of what's going on. So thanks for sharing. Like I said, it's a great reminder of how precious life is and how easy it can be taken away. So yeah, thanks for sharing. All right. I know we'll probably still have a couple of other people that are jumping on. I'm gonna jump out of the gate, and thanks to the recommendation of Mr. Daniel Dixon, I'm going to ask a show of hands who wants to save $1,500 at a minimum, maybe even upwards of around $3,000. Now, I don't have a lot of cameras on that I'm looking at, so
yes.
Someone wants to save some money? You want to save some money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Rob, virtually they can click the raise your hand button.
They can raise the hand. That part's true too. I'm seeing hands raised. I'm seeing a couple of physical hands being raised. Matt, I didn't see yours. All right, fair enough. Well, I asked that question because, and now this is a rhetorical piece of extension of the question. I don't want an answer on this, but my guess is we're all pretty guilty of what I'm about to talk about. And what I'm about to talk about, we're going to go over a couple of the most recent division newsletter in the fourth quarter and the violations that came from that. The most recent, there's a couple things that came up, and how many of you have gone into a house and it's an amazing house, and you're starting to take your little video for your social media post so that you can go out and try to drum up some additional business, showing this incredible home that's out there, and taking, whether it be some still shots, whether it be some video, and you go after after you're done taking a look at the property, you go on your social media and you post an incredible social media ad that generates a lot of activity. Now there's the rhetorical piece. I'm not expecting people to answer that question, but it's safe to say that has happened more now than ever before. People are using social media on a regular basis, and they're doing this as a way to, stimulate their own social media ads and generate some more activity from it. So let's, right out of the gate, who understands? Well, first off, if you know what is right or wrong about it, I'd like to hear from you first of saying, is it okay to do that? And if so, why? Is it okay to go and record something that you walking through somebody's house and taking a video? Is it okay to do that? Yes or no?
This sounds like a trick question.
If you get permission from the seller?
What's that?
Can't you get permission from the seller? And if they're okay, you can do that?
Okay, that's a great piece. I'm going to not be so tricky yet. So if you get permission from a seller, that would go a long way.
Permission from the seller. Okay, so newbie jumping in here because I really want to know the answer to this because I've already posted one like this. But if you get permission from the seller or from the seller's agent, cite the seller's agent in the post and get permission to use the photography, written permission from the seller's agent, then you're okay because you're marketing a property with permission. And I know, we've had some conversations with the Nilsson team about, they're advocating for us to do that on their behalf too.
Okay, so you brought up a couple of things that can be brought up on this. So first off, permission from the seller is what you said. Then permission from the listing agent. Is the expectation, if Stacy, if you're the agent that wants to go broadcast this, and say I'm the listing agent, are you expected to reach out to the seller directly?
My understanding is no, and let me just backtrack and say permission from the seller's agent, but that I would not be seeking permission from the seller themselves. But if the seller's agent would like to ask for permission, that is sort of their purview and their decision to do so.
How does everybody feel about Stacy's answer?
I say yes.
If you're the listing agent, would you want a buyer's agent to reach out to your seller directly?
No.
Okay. I'm in agreement with what Stacy said, and I don't know what little emoji Matt just threw across the board. Like, oh, I feel like he's already ready to explode that he hasn't spoken yet. So he's using some other little comical relief, but
Matt's the quiet type. He's silent. Doesn't really talk unless asked to. Yeah.
Yes, that's what he's known for. He really bites his tongue well. So I'll jump in with what Stacy said quickly, and then we'll let Matt unleash some tension for a second. So absolutely, if I'm the listing agent, I do not want another agent I don't care if they're in the company or out of the company, to contact my client. So it's fair to say that you as the agent, especially at a different company, are not expected to get permission from the seller. Now, yes, you should be reaching out to the listing agent, and should you get permission, well, first off, is the permission, does it need to be in writing, or is that just a better practice?
Writing,
Why does it need to be in writing?
because Matt said so. I saw his comment.
Well, Matt's just overly cautious. I mean, don't worry about what Matt has to say.
I think it's smart to have everything in writing. It says CYA.
Okay. Decades of experience. Okay. I will agree that it is a good practice to get something in writing, because is it possible that when you said, hey, Dan Dixon gave me permission, and then he comes back because his client is now upset, and Dan's like, I never authorized you to do that. Is that possible? The answer, of course, would be yes. But I'm even going to go one step higher. I'm going to pull up something real quick here. Let me see if I can share my screen. And let's see. All right. Let's see if that is able to work. Okay. I'm going to pull this up. This would be the main reason why you want to get it in writing is, first off, do you guys see these administrative rules in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this first section, this is prohibited conduct as applicable to a licensed individual.
Hey, Rob, does prohibited mean if you feel good about it?
It means, yeah, it means,
It's absolute.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. So prohibited conduct cannot happen. All right, so they go through several things that you can't do, and some of the things build off of each other. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but you gotta understand that you're under this category of things that you cannot do. And we're going to jump down here where it starts talking about advertisement. So the first thing, you cannot advertise or offer to sell or lease a property without written consent. So let's just start with that. How does a listing agent get written consent? Or a listing brokerage?
Through their ERS.
Their ERS. Their exclusive. Now, we choose to use an exclusive right to sell. That means that no other brokerage is able to take this listing. It's an exclusive right to sell. So that agreement is critical to be able to start to advertise and sell and lease the property. The administrative rule requires that. So that's our first step as the brokerage and the listing agent. Okay, well then now we go on a couple of things down even further. If we want to advertise or offer to sell or lease a property at a lower that dovetails into something different. I'm going to dive into that one in a second. But this first piece, advertise or offer to sell. So it's broken up in two pieces. Now the buyer's agent is asking to be able to market a property. Well, first off, they're not the listing agent, as we know this. They don't have an ERS. And so in order for this to then be okay, that person still has to get written consent. So this is where an oral consent, I would say, no longer, the primary reason why we need to get written consent, is because it's administrative rule. Not only it's a best practice, but it even states it that you must have written consent in order for you to start to advertise that. Definitely the underlying piece is you want it to protect yourself. Okay, so
I was just going to say,
You want me to pull that back up?
yeah, pull that back up. It's interesting, right? And sorry for chiming in. I'm getting, my head's going to explode. So,
we've given you enough time with being quiet.
Yeah.
It's
so
time now.
This comes from 2 decades of experience and having dealt with this many, many times. And oh, by the way, in the past 2 years, there was actually a lawsuit filed by a seller. So this isn't like Rob talking about theory. This is real world. Somebody, an agent who wrote, actually, I believe they did a video and shared it online, and a lawsuit was filed against that agent because they felt that the information that was portrayed online was detrimental and they had no right to do so. So this is a significant thing. And notice when it says, highlight that section of written consent, Rob, line Q.
This part?
Yeah, written consent of, and then a list follows because there's a colon. The owners of the property. So if you're going to go through the listing agent to get written permission, it's not enough to just say, well, the listing agent said I could do it, because that's not what the administrative rule says. It says you must get the written consent of the owners of the property. And then if the property is currently listed, the broker, not the agent. Why? Because the listing is actually owned by the broker / brokerage, not by the agent. And so I don't think agents are bad actors. And I think they're just like, well, that's their listing. Well, no, it's technically not. It's the company's listing, and you must get the principal broker's permission in addition to the owner of the property, right? So these are very specific things. And the office managers will always tell you, one of my favorite sayings is, it's never a problem until it's a problem. And so this is what we govern to. This is what we train to say, don't be one of the foolish ones that sits there and says, oh, and I've even had brokers say that, oh, we've done this for years and it's never been a problem. I'm like, that just means the clock's ticking for you, pal. And once one of these things rears its head, the least of your concerns is going to be violating a DRE rule. It's when this turns to litigation and somebody says, you created damages and now I'm taking you and your brokerage to court. That's when it gets significant.
Thanks,
Matt, you probably already, I feel like the passion in your voice with that answer probably suggests the answer to my question here, or rebuttal, but it feels like when we sign the ERS and the broker signs that ERS and they appoint an agent to be the agent for that property, are you not giving them permission to then answer that question? Or do you, as the principal broker, really want the question to be asked to you every single time if an agent calls us and says, hey, can I, film your property for whatever reason?
Yeah. So it's not a matter of what I want or what I don't want, or in this case now, what Rob wants or doesn't want. The rule is very specific. 1, it's got to be in writing. 2, it's got to be the owner of the property. And 3, it's got to be who? The listing broker, not the agent. So I know the point you're making. We're delegating some of our responsibility as a broker and a brokerage to our listing agents to do certain things, but that's in the context of selling the property themselves, right? The DRE is making a clear distinction here, in my opinion, of, oh, if you're going to invite somebody outside of the exclusive agency relationship, then you better jump certain hurdles, right? Because there's safety, not just for the relationship between the seller and the listing brokerage, but the DRE has to run a tight ship, and they want to make sure it is unequivocally clear. If you're going to sign an exclusive agency agreement, and there's been some subsequent articles about the nature of exclusive right to sell, exclusive buyer's agency agreements, and what the word exclusive means. It's kind of crazy we have to have that discussion. It seems self-evident in my view, but apparently the DRE says, well, we better make sure the agents really understand what exclusive means.
Yeah. Okay.
I think there's a couple of
people that our brokerage likes to use for that, or we can just do it in text or email.
This is a similar question what Dan was asking is, can text work? Can email work? All of those definitely are in writing. Whatever paper trail you're deciding to use, the key thing that needs to be done is you have to keep your broker also informed of things that are being done. And some of that, the way of informing us, can be whether it be done in person, whether it be done through a paper trail, and it can also be done in how our brokerage has decided to keep track of records. So, for example, SkySlope is the direction that our brokerage is choosing to hold its files. So yes, if you were to send a text to me, if you were to send an email to me, okay, great. And then what you should be obligated to do is make sure that you upload that information in to SkySlope. Now, if you are working with a particular buyer and looking at a property and so you want to put that written authorization in with that buyer that you're working with, great. If you are just looking at a property that you think is cool and you want to then go show this property on your social media page, so it's more kind of a generalized piece, well, then if I were you, I would have some type of a file in SkySlope that you have that is able to just take regular documentation that you can reference. The key thing is if something were to go wrong, you need to be able, we're going to come to you and you need to be able to demonstrate that you've got the paper trail that authorized this to happen or not. Does that answer your question, Melissa?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Hey, Julie, I'm seeing your hand up. You still have a question? Or maybe it was so long ago you forgot? Okay. Stacy, maybe same thing with you. Do you have a question or is that?
No, I raised my hand for, yes, I want to save money.
You want to save money? Okay. All right. Well, let me show you how I am demonstrating this right now. How about that? Okay, let me go back to sharing my screen. I said I would save you a minimum $1,500 and maybe as much as $3,000. So let's pull up the division newsletter of what happened in the fourth quarter with a couple of people and kind of what was done and what was not done. So let's start with, we're going to start with this one right here.
Are we going to say his name?
Look familiar?
Oh yeah, let's say his name, Michael D. Hetzlop. I mean, it's public record. We're not doing anything.
It's public record.
Yeah.
I laugh at this because, you know, again, Matt and I have been doing this a while, and so you might come across people that at some point you worked with them, and when you work with them, they have all the answers, and he had a lot of answers. So
can I take a different spin on that, Rob? It's not even that they have a lot of answers. Quite often what we hear is, and even in our current company sometimes, is some version of this. Why are you making things so difficult for me to do business?
Yeah.
And
it's true.
I will just make this public disclosure because this call is being recorded. We do not, the brokers, Dan, Julie, Bunny, Rob, myself, Ron Snow, Daryl, any of the other brokers that are employed by the company, we do not have private meetings where we sit there and go, what can we do to make things difficult for our agents to close more transactions? I mean, think about it, guys. That's counterproductive. But there is an equal side to that argument of, are we doing what we're supposed to do so we're not putting collectively all of our arses in a sling, right? The potential either, I mean, really, it goes in this order: code of ethics violation, division of real estate, and potentially your licensure. And if it's severe enough, you lose your livelihood, and lawsuit. I always look at things in that hierarchy: code of ethics violation, division of real estate, lawsuit. And we intelligently and intently look at the quote unquote policies we put in place and say, is there a realistic probability that this could go sideways if we didn't have a system or a procedure in place? And if the answer is yes, then we're going to put something into place, and we try and make it as little restrictive as possible, but it's got to be significant enough to give you, me, and our clients protection.
And back to where you said, Matt, where you were saying there's never a problem until there's a problem. And then that's when I've said in the past, then you have a problem. Use this as an example. You can have a transaction where buyer and seller have written up an offer, and it is a disaster. We're saying there's so many things wrong with that offer, meaning prices are wrong, things aren't identified as what's included, and buyer and seller both was like, oh, I know that that wasn't included, but I understood it was supposed to be included. Basically, buyer and seller are willing to work things out. They're not going to let how poorly that contract is written keep them from actually performing on the transaction. If you have a buyer and seller like that, yes, you can have a disaster paperwork and it can work with no problem at all. Or you can have one that is basically 99.9% perfect. And then one of the parties is looking for either a reason to get out. Let's say that the seller went under contract on something and now another offer comes in and it's $20,000, $50,000 more money. And that seller is looking for a way to get out of the property or get out of the transaction. And if they find that one thing wrong with the contract, that gives them the opportunity to potentially cancel the transaction. So that's where there's never a problem until there's a problem. Okay, well, that first scenario, buyer and seller, they've got all kinds of problems. Well, because they want to work it out, it's still, even though it's a problem, that problem isn't a problem because they decide to work it out. But the other example, when 99% of the contract is good, but someone wants to find a problem, that's where this thing goes south. And so back to this, where this example is. So the agent admitted that he had advertised a property for sale without having a written listing agreement and without disclosing his brokerage information of the advertisement. So those are two separate violations. One, the blind ad, not disclosing their brokerage. And then the second piece, not having written authorization. And that conduct.
Oh, but wait, Rob, there's more. And then he changed brokerages and used the old brokerage's name doing the wrong thing. So he hit the trifecta.
Yes. And so right out of there, he agreed to pay a $1,500 penalty in addition to some continuing education. Well, then we go down to, I'm going to jump down to this one, which is a little bit similar example. I think it was a little bit more egregious, but they followed some similar patterns. So the agent down in St. George admitted that he took video of a property listed with a broker with whom he was not affiliated and without the broker's permission. So this right here is the example that I really wanted that our opening discussion took from. We walk into a house, whether we take pictures, whether we take video, and we believe that we have the right, because it's our camera, that we have the right to do what we want with this. No, that is not out in the public. That is in somebody's private home. That is not public information that you can do what you want with. So let me also, using this example, let me share another piece that I would be very cautious with as well, but I think there's a little bit more of a gap. What about the client that we're working with that is in Nebraska, and now we're showing the property and we're either taking photos so they can use it later, or we're doing a FaceTime type of a showing? Do I believe that there's a little bit more gray area here? Yes, I do. But our job here is to not only protect the company, to protect you and also our own license as well. So in a scenario like that, if you have a client where you're going to do a FaceTime type of a show, or you're taking some pictures to show the parties later on, my advice would get written authorization to do that as well. If you know that you're going to be showing properties where your client is going to be doing FaceTime, make sure the listing agent is aware of that. Why you may not be recording the video, you may not personally do anything with that video, but is it possible that the person, your client on the other end, is going to do something? And now that video starts getting sent out to someone out there that is going to do something with the video that they shouldn't be. You want to make sure that you get that to protect yourself. You want to make sure that you get that permission before you do anything. Stacy, did you raise your hand for the question on this?
Jenny,
Yes, I did. So one of my questions is regarding when you're working with or trying to want to market a new construction, and you're working with a representative from the builder. I'm just not quite sure what is required in writing. For example, if we wanted to market a Nelson home.
Okay, so you're wanting to, so working with the builder directly that's representing themselves as their own agent?
Yes.
Okay, so Nilsson Homes, for Jed Nilsson, they use their own agents to sell real estate. So, I mean, if you're trying to market their property and we get something in writing that allows us to go ahead and do that. Get something, I would send an email to whoever their head of advertising. I mean, if they have the authorization from Jed, then, and you've got that to whatever you're going to be doing, you want to make sure that you have that authorization from them. They're the broker and the seller all together. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. But yeah, you just want to have something in writing, and something like that, I would, have an email that really goes into depth what you're planning on doing as marketing steps, and why you're trying to attract it. So that's the key piece. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone? I've seen a couple of hands that keep popping up. Is there anyone else that has something?
Jenny Erb.
Jenny Erb. Jenny.
You're muted, Jenny.
Exit. Okay, sorry. I just had some thoughts on, showing somebody a home virtually. Wouldn't that, first of all, when you FaceTime, it's not recorded. And
However, they could be taking some other recording of it.
Can I chime in on that really quickly? Because I think this is a key point. One, Jenny and everybody else. If we're doing the recording versus a client, right? I can't sit there. I don't have policing powers. I can't tell my client to take a video, but clearly the liability shifts from me to them, from the company to them. This is one of the key things we're talking about is you as a licensee, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do as an employee of the company versus what liability do they, take on? And so I think that's a key point of differentiation. And you're right, Rob. I mean, and Jenny's right. It tends to be just real-time video going on. And if somebody's sophisticated enough to then take a video and then push it out, that creates a very clear path. And I really feel we're strongly out of the crosshairs of any liability. So, but virtual showings are a real thing. They're actually kind of an industry standard of sorts, even though it's a little less frequent thing. So it's not like we're inventing some new pathway. But I still think, Jenny, to Rob's point, is anytime I would do a virtual showing, I would just simply say to the agent, hey, and I would shoot him a text message or an email. This is going to be a virtual showing. I'm going to FaceTime with my clients. Is that okay?
Yeah.
That gives you some coverage.
And that's what I'm getting at is we're just taking the extra step to just make that awareness.
Yes. And when I have a buyer consultation, just like live in person, you have that conversation with your buyer, have respect for their home. There may be cameras in the home. Keep your thoughts to yourself. I just kind of let them know, don't show them your deck, just be really careful and mindful of what you're saying.
If if you don't do what Jenny just said with your clients, your buyer clients, you're doing a disservice. I mean, whether it's Alexa, whether it's Google Home apps, they all have the ability to record. They all have most of them have the ability to even capture video, and you don't even know it. And so, I mean, you could find yourself, and these are things I've read about nationally, fair housing issues get captured, and all of a sudden you're staring at a lawsuit. Or even if the client says it and you don't like shut it down appropriately, you can get lumped into it. So that should be like a standard thing anytime you're working with a buyer. Hey, we live in the 21st century. Just assume everything in the house is being recorded. One, don't ruin your negotiating position. You can just say, isn't that interesting? And we can make notes, and then we'll go out to our cars or outside and we'll have a conversation. That should be standard.
Away from the doorstep.
away from the
Yes.
ring, away from the ring doorbell that can capture.
Far away.
Which, by the way, sorry, really quick anecdotal thing. Saturday night, I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock. I was just going to deadbolt the front door, and all of a sudden, somebody knocks on my door. I'm like 3 feet away from the door. I open it up and I see this kid running out to his scooter on the sidewalk trying to make the getaway. We had a nice, pleasant conversation. And I informed him how ignorant he is in this day and age, because I pointed out to 5 cameras across the front of my house, including a Ring doorbell. And I had his face and everything else. And I'm like, and I know who your parents are, so this will never happen again. It's an anecdotal story for the day and age we live in.
Oh man, you would have been target number 1 in my teenage years.
Well, I might have said something like, and next time I'll just let my dog out after you.
Oh, bring it. That would have been mission. Hey, so Rob, looking at like procedural stuff like this. So if I have a listing, and you know, I think video tours are kind of like common, but I don't know if I've ever had anyone ask if they can take video, like specifically to post on social media. But we're good with like an agent doing a video walkthrough, right? And we don't need additional permission from you or the seller for that.
Yeah. Again, what I've said is, in Matt and Jenny kind of touched on this. If you're doing a video tour, you put your clients in another state and you're doing a video tour.
Yeah.
When you're setting up that showing, I think it's wise to make them aware of it. Just say, hey, my clients, they're not in town. They could be watching you walk through the house, and they're going to say, well, Dan, I just saw you come through on your own. What's the problem? Where's your client? Are you sure you're showing a property?
Yeah, and I've had that before. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you're going your camera around everywhere, so you're going to probably have to explain it at some point. I think I'm a firm believer in the proactive steps on this, of saying, look, hey, my client's in Nebraska. We're going to be showing a couple of homes today by video. Just want to make you aware of that, and so that's what I'm going to be doing. And just assumptive that they're not going to have a problem, because of course, generally you're not going to have a problem, but now you've got the awareness. But
Okay.
since you're not going to be taking that information and posting it somewhere else, no, we don't need that type of written ad. We're not advertising. You're just doing a showing, but
Okay.
just make them aware of it. D.
Yep, I have a quick question. What about home inspection reviews when we do the buyer walkthrough?
Are you
My-
going
my
through with the
co-
camera?
Home inspector, we saw a camera in the kitchen, so we walked down to the basement and reviewed it. But what is your suggestion there?
Well, if you're not, again, we're only talking about advertising stuff. So when you're going through an inspection, you're not taking anything. You already have authorization to do that inspection because you've notified the party. You're not
Right.
they're discussing the material of the house. They're taking photos of the house for the area that is wrong or the issue that they're having. So they have authorization because they approved the inspection to do that. Now, you're not taking that information and putting it on your website. Now, if you are going to post things on your website, hey, look at this, look at that, well, then you better get some permission. That's a different discussion about criticizing or commenting properties. I can go down a rabbit hole on that one.
Jenny just put a comment. She's seen an agent do this, and I would say circle back to Shane L. Jourdain. and read that whole paragraph, because that's exactly what he was doing. And that's what he got torched for. He had multiple houses that he made it appear were his listings and posted photos and videos. And the DRE said, yeah, $3,350. Thank you very much. And oh, by the way, maybe it's more insulting to do 6 hours of CE that doesn't count towards your renewal.
Yeah, he was saying where he would take multiple listings and continue to advertise it even after they had been sold.
Well, he didn't even, on the initial one, he didn't even have the original listing. He just walked through a listing that wasn't his, and took video, and then portrayed it as if it was his. And then he did it with multiple other properties.
Correct.
So to Jenny's point, that's exactly what she brought up. It's like, yeah, you know, that guy's living on a prayer.
You're muted, Jenny.
I was just trying to text it. He actually did it for one of the sold properties for one of our agents.
Well,
Sorry for this, Mel.
whoever our agent is, I'd have a very frank conversation with him and be like, hey man, that ever happens again,
Oh,
we'll file a complaint with the DRE and you can go join the ranks of Mr. Jourdain.
no, he was not the one.
Oh,
Yeah, this guy on social media, and his videos are really good, but he does give off the persona like he's responsible for the one sold. And it was one of our agents' closings. And I'm like, that's crappy. So he is with a smaller, newer brokerage, and I don't even remember the name of their brokerage, but yeah, he really should be a social media influencer, not that.
Well, again, I'm not trying to knock new ways of advertising, marketing, and taking advantage of technologies and things that are out there. But like anything else, you still have to do it within whatever rules we have that are set for us. And there's always going to be people that want to push the envelope, and you know, if you want to walk the fine line, well, as Matt mentioned earlier, brokers or brokerages that have done things for years, well, eventually it probably catches up to you.
Okay. We're okay to do it on our own brokerages listings, right? I did one that was 3 examples of my 3 favorite RE/MAX townhouses and the benefits of living in a townhouse. And I did get text permission, had those conversations
from the listing agent, right?
Yeah. And that's okay, right? Because I didn't take credit for the listing. I named them as RE/MAX listings, and then I named the MLS number and the agent. Is that the proper way to do it?
So again, back to 2 parts with what Matt said earlier is, again, we have to make sure that we have authorization from the seller and of course the broker. I can tell you right now, if our listing agent has authorized it, then they're taking the responsibility to make sure that they have asked the seller to make sure that's being done. Would you be the one that's in trouble if they truly have not done that? And the same, it's no different that if that agent came to me and said, hey, are you okay if I allow another agent in our company to market the property? We said, I'm fine with that. Have you checked with your seller? And if they say yes, but they didn't, again, I'm not calling the seller myself to verify that that's happening. I'm taking the word of the agent that it's going to be done. So as the broker, do I mind if you're advertising someone else's in our company? No, as long as that listing agent allows you to do it.
Okay, cool. You guys will have to look at it. Tell me what you think. It's on my Instagram, so
okay.
Hopefully.
Got had a couple things pop up. Either Melissa and Stacy, either one of you guys have questions? Melissa or Stacy, I see your hand up. Stacy Marsh.
Yeah. Sorry. I just want to make sure I understand when it's between agents in the same brokerage. So on our in Jenny's example, whoever the agent is that gives Jenny that permission, let me just say, they need to get a written approval from their client, right?
Yeah,
So
the administrative rule says that we have to have written authorization. Now, let's just say Dan is the listing agent, and he could make this part of his listing presentation, and he could ask and say, hey, if Matt were the client, do you have, if there, sometimes I get agents in our company that would like to market and expose your property on their own platforms. Do you have any problem with that? No, I'd love that to be done. Okay, let's just make sure in our addendum that you're allowing us to, other agents in our company, you're getting written authorization right out of the gate for that to happen. Well, if Dan did that, now do I believe very many people are having this conversation? No, I don't believe that they are. But could they save themselves time, they're having to go back at a later time and take care of this? Yes, they could. So if they did an addendum that just says, sure, the seller is authorizing anyone at RE/MAX and Associates to continue to advertise on their own social media platforms. If they had that, now Dan doesn't, if Jenny comes and asks him a month later, he doesn't need to reach out to the seller and get written authorization at that point because he's already got it. But if he doesn't do what I just suggested, well, then technically, yes, he's going to have to ask the seller and get written authorization. And if, again, do I believe that that's happening? No, I don't believe that that's happening. But it is required. And if something went wrong and all of a sudden the seller saw that Jenny was advertising something, Jenny wouldn't be the one at fault. It would, because she reached out to Dan and Dan authorized it. It's going to come down. It's going to start with the company and Dan, and we're like, hey, you know, here's our evidence. So again, is this something that happens and is a problem often? Probably not. It's more of that. If this is the, 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 5, I don't know how often it could happen, but you never know what might set it off. The administrative rule requires written authorization from the seller and from the broker.
So can I chime in on that?
As my son would say to me, I don't know, can you?
He's a wisecrack. So listen, we're always fighting this balance of trying to make things easy and yet offering the protection. So in our ERS, seller signs with the broker and the brokerage saying, I allow you to market my property. Now that is not just blanket. In fact, if you look at, items A through K, here's all the things specifically articulated that they authorize us to do. Okay. One of those is to take photos and put it on the MLS and stuff like that. Implicit in that is there's some level of coverage for photos and videos. Now, where it gets into the gray area, also in that ERS, even though it's a contract with the company, it says, oh, you're going to use Melissa Montgomery as the agent on this, but there's also right behind that, it says, and the principal broker reserves the right to delegate the responsibilities in this contract, and I'm paraphrasing, to other agents in the company if the original agent is not available. Well, think of the situation we're talking about here. Melissa doesn't have the ability to go to the property every time and shoot a video and FaceTime or whatever the case may be. And so there is some level, I'm not saying it's ironclad, there is some level of direct and implicit ability for us to allow agents in our company to do it without having an additional written document signed by the broker, signed by the seller. Is everybody tracking me so far? I'm not saying it's ironclad, but there's enough there that I won't lose too much sleep over it. Now, listen, if that agent, Jenny, I'm going to pick on you because we're friends. If the agent went out and did jackassery, as I like to call it, to where it gave the seller indigestion, could we potentially have a problem? Yeah, we sure could, right? I'm pretty confident in our agent pool that that's not going to happen. Way less confident when it gets outside the scope of our company. You all know the agents I'm talking about. And that's where you would want to make sure everything is just buttoned down very much in an ironclad fashion. Now, last thing is, Jenny, you mentioned something about you were taking some previous solds, correct, in the company and kind of.
Not me, that guy.
Oh, I thought you said you had put together something on homes that have been sold in our company. Kind of here's some townhomes that have been sold or things like that.
Listings. So
Yeah.
they were active listings, and then I actually sent you a link to the Instagram so you could see
Oh, okay.
that it was saying listed by agents. Here's my favorite Remax listings.
Yeah.
Active listings.
And you know what? And here's the thing. We get this in a number of forms, right? And the argument goes something like this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob. But it's like, well, you know, people put stuff on their website all the time. Well, why can't I just do whatever, fill in the blank? It's a very close cousin. Well, here's the fundamental difference. When a seller signs with us and they take the ERS and it says we're allowed to put it on the MLS, and in the MLS, there are licensing agreements called IDX. There are specific things. So there is a linkage between the contracts that allows Dan Dixon, if he's over at, BowDiddleyBrokerage.com, that since he's a subscriber to the MLS, he can actually take a listing that is ours and put it up there, and he puts the attribution. Oh, this is actually Remax Associates, Jenny Earp's listing, yada, yada, yada. It just happens to be on my website. That's the functional difference. It looks the same to what a lot of times people want to do. Well, I just want to put it on my Instagram. People are putting it on their website. Well, there is no license in place to protect if you put it on your Instagram, right?
Okay.
And this is where I feel bad, because contract and tech nerd out, on steroids, and most agents are like, I don't do that. I don't nerd out on tech and contracts. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of why the Division of Real Estate requires you to hang your license with a principal broker who is a little bit of a nerd, right? So that you don't step in it.
Okay.
You're our favorite nerd, Matt.
Thanks, Melissa.
Okay, well, you'll have to look at the link I sent in.
Hey, I will. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we'll make sure we get something, or just make sure they notify their client. But I think you'll be happy with it.
Yeah.
Well, we're wrapping up here. I am going to just dangle a little bit of a carrot, kind of what we'll talk about in a couple of weeks, because it just happens to be on that same page. I started to mention that. Let me just pull it back up real quick. This last piece on advertising or offer to sell or lease a property at a lower price. This goes into when we talk to our clients and they're authorizing us to lower the price, but we don't get something in writing from them that allows us to lower the price. But we just go on the MLS and we had a conversation, and they say, I go ahead and lower it to 700,000 or what, and it's at 710 or whatever it is. And they verbally say it, or let's just say they did it by a text. Well, we might have something in writing at that point, but this goes back to the obligation for you as the agent to keep the brokerage informed. And we have our company policy. How you keep us informed is by uploading that information into SkySlope. So we're going to dive into this deeper in a couple of weeks, but making sure that we have that documentation. Otherwise, it's not that the company is just trying to, play hardball. It's the fact that, again, it goes back to a division requirement that requires us to do this. So that's just kind of a little sub piece. Before we get off, I saw on here real quick, is Parker Smith still on this call?
Yep.
I am. What did I do wrong?
Happy birthday, brother!
Thanks, man.
Today's his birthday, and he's out here working.
I appreciate it.
It looks like he's going up to the ski resort to go celebrate his birthday, but hey.
My dad's birthday is tomorrow, and so we drove down. He'll be 74. So my brother came in from Spain, and we drove down to St. George, where my father lives, to play Risk all weekend long. And I have to tell you that as nerdy, I think I'd probably just point you out on nerdiness there. But I put 2 homes under contract while I was away. So It was a good weekend.
Hey.
All right, good for
Well,
you.
with that story, Parker, you officially became the biggest nerd in the office. It was Matt, now it's you.
I gotta up my game.
Thanks, guys.
So just happy birthday. Enjoy that.
Hey,
Matt,
Ron.
you said you had something else?
Yeah, so this is just a quick follow-up. I told you guys a couple weeks ago I'd share this with you. So remember, we had a discussion a while back about if earnest money is being held at a title company, right? And what is and what isn't required. And I couldn't find the DRE rule, but ChatGPT is a wonderful thing. It's the new search engine. If you're still using Google, you're a dinosaur. Start using Chat or Grok or Gemini or anything. It's a way better search engine. So let me just share with you really quickly this. Super easy. There we go. Okay. So let me go to my chat. Here we go. So this is the Q2 of 2022. So we're almost 3 years old on this information, right? And it's under the heading of what the Division of Real Estate newsletter says about, specifically about earnest money being held at a title company, right? Instead of a brokerage. And then under the section of what forms are required, it says, according to the Utah Division of Real Estate rules and reflected in the newsletters, the Company Earnest Money Addendum, this is a DRE form, right, to the real estate purchase contract. This is a state-approved form that must, not should be, not we'd like you to, must be used when earnest money is to be held by a title insurance company instead of a trust account. So we still see from time to time addenda coming through. And by the way, it doesn't have to be you writing it, but if you are representing somebody in a REPSI, you have a fiduciary of reasonable care, meaning you know what the DRE has said. That's the rough translation. So if somebody sends over a purchase agreement and then in addendum 1, I just saw one a week ago, earnest money to be held at XYZ title company, right? It's like, yeah, no, that doesn't work. And you, as the listing agent, should be like, hey, appreciate the sentiment, but the DRE requires us to use their form, right? And if you don't know what the actual administrative code is, it's actually you as a licensee are required to use approved forms if they exist. And so this is the context of the rationale behind this. It's like, and so many things can be handled just with a little deft communication skills and just say, hey, totally appreciate you putting that in addendum 1. We're going to counter you back with what's required by the DRE, which says we're going to use the form for earnest money held at a title company. Okay, just do the assumptive close. So I'll be sending that over as a counter. Get that signed and we're underway, right? Don't sit there and worry about it and don't get all trepidatious. Just do the assumptive close. That's it.
And the reason why, by doing this is what prevents us from being accused of practicing law without a license. We have a limited scope of things that we can do, and that's used approved forms, fill out forms that have been not only approved but drafted by attorneys. But otherwise, when we don't do that and we use our own language, that's when we can be accused of practicing law without a license.
What's interesting about that form is, the complicit nature of both sides of the transaction is, we are also responsible for the addendum that's being signed by our clients, right? And if it has to be state form, it has to be state form. Just because they provided us something, doesn't necessarily mean we have to sign it. We had an agent recently participating in a transaction, and both agents were complicit in not ensuring that earnest money was paid on time, and the buyer never paid earnest money. So fast forward months and haggle and back and forth, both agents had to split the earnest money out of their own pocket and pay it to the seller because it was never collected.
How much did each one of them pay, Dan?
It's painful. I don't want to talk about it. It wasn't me though. I think
what was the amount?
It was like $2,500 each.
Yeah.
So it's brutal. And even as a listing agent, when you're like, the 8 days are past, your job isn't done. Like, you have to ensure that the earnest money was collected. And if it's not, it came back upon this agent and had to come out of their pocket to pay the seller, which is just, kind of brutal. So the complicit nature of, the state form, and you're the list agent and the buyer's agent sent over this form, hey, we're going to use the title company. Like, you can't sign it, right? We got to use the state form. And it's, there's many applications of the complicit nature of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you know what? Like we always say, it's not a problem until it's a problem. And as terrible as that sounds, $2,500 per agent, that's a good day, because by getting that agreement, they staved off the seller potentially suing for the deal not going through, which could be way more astronomical.
True.
Okay, everybody. Unless there's something else that somebody has, real quick, I'll give you
Rob.
3 seconds to chime in. Yeah.
Rob,
Yes.
I just want to chime in, and this is what I've been telling my team over the past couple of weeks. Boy, January of 2026 is packed full of great economic outlook information for the rest of the year. If you haven't taken an opportunity to at least study some of that and learn how to digest it and then explain it to your clients in a 30-second snippet, we don't have a crystal ball, but you're missing opportunities to build trust with your clients that you are actually the expert in your field. So please take some time. If you haven't, you can talk to me, Matt, Rob, Dan. We have great resources that you can refer to that can educate you and build your confidence and allow you to speak to your clients with this great self-esteem that allows them to just put greater trust in you. And we have such a great brokerage, it would be a shame to not let everybody else know that. So that's my little snippet for the day.
I love that. Thank you. And you did take the nerd position away from Matt on echoing that. No doubt about it. But well said. Yes,
I learned from the best. So
if there's anyone that that we should be reaching out to be part of our company, please reach out to Shane, myself, Matt, any of the other brokers, Dan, Julie. I mean, we're here to answer those questions. So
invite them onto this call. All visitors are welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Okay, guys, thanks for enjoying the nerd moment. We appreciate it. And you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. Hey, Rob, can you stay on and I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Or Matt?
Let me stop the recording on this first.
There is the Bold Trail class going